I've got two daughters, 7 and 4.
Okay.
I
So you've
mean,
had it.
yeah, but it's 10:38, so they're asleep, thankfully. But if
Got it.
this was 2:30 in my afternoon, they would be on this interview with you,
Yeah.
um, taking over most likely. So I just want to touch base. I know we sort of became Facebook friends recently, and
Yeah.
I just thought Barbara Eels. Okay, is that Project Go and See? Okay, I love that. I need to chat to her.
Oh, well,
That's
great. I'm
all right.
glad that you reached out.
Yeah, well, definitely. I mean, it was it's Christopher Noel, right?
Yeah.
Nathan,
Right.
Maria. And I think I saw a few bits that my fellow countrymen, because I'm from Wales originally, although I don't really have the accent, same as Jason Parsons, Bigfoot Tony.
That's right.
So I noticed in the past that he was on there a little bit with some of his bits and pieces, his video breakdowns. I thought I haven't heard that for ages, and we've not talked about that kind of thing um, on the podcast. Um, so just wanted to get your the insight to why did you guys? I know you're one of the founders. Why did you start it? Why did you make this? First of all, what is it, and then
Okay.
how did it come about?
All right. Well, Project Go and See is more or less a challenge to the Bigfoot community and beyond. Really, we want to reach beyond the usual suspects and try to encourage others to just go and see. Um, in the Bigfoot community, there's a tendency to lock onto certain aspects of this field of interest.
Yeah.
And people tend to sort of join cliques and compartmentalize
Hmm.
their experience. And I think that that's probably one of the biggest hurdles in moving forward in this subject is how that has really closed doors
Hmm.
to people contemplating things that they may not consider otherwise, having marginalized their experience by only dealing with a certain sort of group think, if you
Hmm.
will. And so the whole project came about after Nathan Rio, we know him as Rio, uh, he set out to actually disprove Bigfoot to his nephew.
Uh-huh.
Uh, he was not a believer. He thought it was a bunch of hogwash. And just kind of had this personal mission to disprove everything that his nephew was claiming. And in the process of doing that, very quickly had an encounter
Uh-huh.
himself. And it just, he was gobsmacked. It was the last thing he ever expected. And of course, naturally, that turned his entire belief system upside down as far as this creature is concerned. And we use the expression catching the Bigfoot bug. Once you see one, I mean, how can you not
Hmm.
be incredibly altered? Um, it's the boogeyman. It's the Bigfoot, the legend, the one animal that was filmed back in 1967, and there's so little evidence, rock hard evidence, pointing to its real existence. And even now, that is still such a controversial piece of film. But the bottom line is he started going out and documenting his experiences. And those in the community are very much aware of the connection of uh, structures in the forest, manipulation of the surroundings in ways that um, pose a lot of questions as to whether they're human made, because really much of it really has no purpose, and requires a lot of time and energy to create some of these structures for zero purpose. And I don't know about you, if you're a big hiker or if you spend a lot of time outdoors, but most people who do, aren't in the midst of a hike or, trying to get up to that beautiful waterfall or that scenic peak and just stop everything they're doing and tell everyone they're with, I've got to build a structure. Okay, we just have to stop
Yeah.
what we're doing. It's time to build a structure. We're going to need all the biggest men that are with us to move these 20-foot, 12-inch diameter logs
Yeah.
exactly how I need them to be placed. It's just unrealistic. Then, of course, you have the possibility that they're bushcraft, and I think some of
Mhm.
them are. I think we do see a lot of that in Project Go and See, but you kind of have to, add some critical thought to what you find out
Yeah.
there and ask, what is the purpose? Is it shelter? Okay, it looks like shelter, but do you fit in it?
Mm.
Look inside. Why are there boulders and rocks and trash? Where would you sleep? Why would you put those rocks in there? Why make a campfire ring and never use it? Um, you know, add some critical thought to including what you find as intriguing. You know,
Uh-huh.
it, is it likely human made? If it isn't, great. Let's see it. Share it. Tell us why you think it probably may not be human made. Rio went out. He started documenting what he was experiencing, and there was a day up in Utah, 8, 9,000 feet up. He had set out this spring day to try and locate a structure that he had found the year previously. And the snow had finally melted, and he had the time to do it and went up to film it, to document it. And if you're at all familiar with the catalog of Rio's videos that were once available online and unfortunately are no longer, you would know that a lot of what he did was talk while he was hiking.
Hmm.
And and he's engaging and very down to earth, and
He seems
people
like
were
a
drawn
very
to
nice
him.
chap.
He's a great guy. And his channel kind of just took off. And then this one day, on the way up to what he called Monument Wallow, he was flanked. We believe by at least three, if not four, individuals based on the different directions the vocalizations were coming from. He had both his dogs with him, and he was completely caught off guard by the situation. Was not expecting it. So he filmed this as it was happening
Hmm.
and posted it after having manipulated the audio in a way that everyone who watched the video would be able to experience the vocalizations as clearly and as loudly as he did.
Hmm.
Unfortunately for him, forensically, it's obvious that it was manipulated, and so the fallout from that was very disruptive and
Oh, I
scary.
see. Yes, that's something I wasn't aware of actually. I mean, having a hand in cryptozoology in general, I don't ever remember hearing about that. But this is something that you talk about sometimes. I think is that in this community, the cliques and the teams, as it were, the opposing teams of theories and com competing.
Yeah,
Sometimes I think it's competing for the same type of territory. I made a little video recently when I was saying, are we in cryptozoology all big fish in a little pond and there's nothing to eat but each other?
right.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and because we all go through this experience at certain points, and I mean, uh, I myself have been caught up with colleagues in the past in in drama and fights and little wars against competing colleagues or people that seem to be out to get them. And later on, I've often, you know, got to know the person who was concerned and realized actually this was very bad. This person didn't
yeah,
deserve this, and it seems that we're too eager
unfortunately.
to dismiss them. So are you saying because he manipulated the video to make sure that everybody could hear what was going on, that manipulation of the sound, etc., was seen as an obvious fake? They say, well, this has
Absolutely.
been manipulated, therefore it
That's
cannot
right.
be real. And that's very,
Right.
very sad. Very sad. So what
He
happened
was,
after that? He deleted the
yeah,
videos, or
no, no, he still has it, and
oh
many
yes,
of us have viewed it, and he's invited others in the community to his
yeah,
home to actually watch the original on the phone that it was
oh yes,
recorded on or on his computer where it's downloaded, and many have seen it, and the vocalizations are there.
yeah,
And uh, a lot of people say I'm too close to him to give an unbiased opinion about it. I know he everything he claims about that video is
yeah.
indeed absolutely true.
I mean, you could
And
say in a way actually that you would have to be close to somebody to know that they haven't faked something, right?
and
You can't be too
well,
close to
right.
them. knowing them is
And
what gives you the assurance that it's not fake.
and in all fairness as well, I actually had come into the community and was adminning in a group that had been created for Mike Patterson.
Uh-huh.
And I had been an admin there for, I don't know, 18 months or so when I had seen Monument Wallow when it was first posted by Rio on his channel Utah Sasquatch, which is no longer, well, the group page, the Facebook page is no longer. I think I don't even know if he has a Utah. I don't think he has the Utah
Okay.
Sasquatch Facebook page or YouTube channel anymore. He does have his Nathan Rio, and there are, I don't know. He posts stuff and takes stuff down. He privatizes things, and every once in a while, if you're lucky and you happen to pass by his channel, there may be something there. But he's pretty
Okay.
much scrubbed the videos, which is really unfortunate. But
And this is all because
uh,
of this incident
uh, not
or
necessarily
the
that.
fallout from it.
Right after that happened, I approached Rio, and he and I started talking. And at that point, he was pretty much ready to just get the heck out,
Hmm.
and had a change of thought and decided to just approach social media in a much more cautious way. And so he created a secret group. It's called the Inner Circle, and I helped him establish that group and sort of weed out the dangers.
Mm.
Uh, it was sort of like Rio's living room, and his closest, most trusted friends would hang out and share things that they've come to realize maybe the general population didn't deserve to see.
Hmm.
And so we have quite a few very well-known people in the group. Uh, Compared to most Facebook groups, it's a small number of people, but
Yeah.
we're very careful about who's there, and it's a place where we can share um, what we find and what we experience
Sure.
with
Sure.
safety and anonymity. And uh, Project Go and See was born of um, the fallout of Monument Wallow.
Uh-huh.
And once the IC started sort of getting into a groove, and he was starting to feel a little more um, bold again about
Uh-huh.
sharing things, he came up with the idea that, you know, it doesn't matter if anyone believes you. And you really shouldn't believe what anybody else is claiming. And
Hmm.
at the end of the day, the only way to go from cynic to skeptic to believer to knower is through personal experience. And of course, once you start getting into the community and meeting people and finding others that you trust and believe, um, you learn so much through others' experiences. But again, at the end of the day, Rio's whole idea was don't believe what other people are saying or doing.
Yes. Of
Don't
course.
expect anyone to
Yeah.
believe what you're doing or saying. Don't try and prove anything. Let's just tilt the scales, you know, and allow people to understand that these experiences are really not as difficult to have if you do certain things. There are certain things that are going to increase your chances of having an encounter, or at the very least, a finding sign. And that's how Project Go and See was born.
Hmm.
Um, the group is a little different in the sense that we don't have it open to posts of, for instance, most groups you'll find people sharing really interesting, wonderful things that they see elsewhere. We don't do that. The posts in Project Go and See are strictly the findings of those who go and see, whether it's audio recordings,
Hmm.
video, photos, and we're very strict on the type of photos that we allow. You won't see red circles in
Yeah.
Project Go and you won't see blob squatches.
Right.
Um, they kind of share the stuff behind the scenes and say, look, I found this.
Mm.
Um, we don't suggest scrubbing your video after the fact looking for pareidolia.
Yeah. Yeah.
If you do find something that you didn't notice when you were out there the first time, go back. And really, we don't want you posting anything about it until you've been
Absolutely.
able to go back and show a comparison shot. Try and take pictures or video from the exact location, and then approach the spot where this thing was. And sometimes, lo and behold, there's that face. It's still there
Mm.
3 months later. Let's go see what it was. Oh,
Golden
it's
rule. I
Barb.
mean, I completely agree with that, and I've been saying it to people for a long time. If you do find suspicious, interesting structures out in the forest, you know, why are we not looking around for footprints around
Right,
them? Or if something that's possibly 300 to 400 pounds or more has erected a big structure, perhaps
right.
it's left some indentation and or some hair or
Sure,
scat or other things. And
absolutely.
additionally, yes, where's the comparison shot? And even when I started years ago, it's something you just don't think about. Actually, it's surprising how
Right.
many of us just don't think about it. I, after listening to Jeff Meldrum and getting one of his little, had a lovely chat with him actually, and he gave me, in fact, one of his little pamphlets, and it was a great uh, key in there, a great guide for lightweight casting, which was some minimally expanding insulating foam and a piece of cardboard and a little paperweight, and you fill up the track with the
Right.
foam. It takes 5 minutes. You put the cardboard on with a stone on top or a
Yeah.
rock or a paperweight, and then you've got this really light cast to take away. And you're not lugging water in this whole,
Well, thank you for
casting
sharing that
kit
because
with you.
I've never
Yeah,
heard of that recipe, and that's an incredible idea. I'm surprised
yeah.
nobody else has thought of that.
I've tried it a
So
few
much easier than
times on my own prints. Yeah, I've not found prints here in the UK, but I've tried it a few times, and they come out really, really nicely. And yeah, you don't have to wait there, especially with British weather being what it is. You've got to get there before the rain gets there as fast
absolutely.
as possible.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's a great way forward. But people, even people in our Bigfoot community here, nobody thinks about it. Oh, I
Yeah.
found some, very interesting prints. I'm thinking, where's your casting? Where's your
Right.
cast? It has to
Yeah,
be
they're
that.
not prepared. But
No.
honestly, I think a lot of the people, and we're finding it in Project Go and See, they set out to go and look, and of course, everybody does so because they want the experience, they want to
Yeah.
see it, or they want to find a footprint, or some sort of something that that will push them
Yeah.
to
For
be more
sure.
convinced. And they get so excited when they see structures that they just run right up to them and start circling them and taking pictures from every
Yeah.
angle. And I'm like, you should have been looking down. The structure's not going anywhere, but those footprints
Yeah.
definitely will. And
Yes.
just don't run up to the structure. Take your time. Um, One of my favorite sentences out of the mouths of Project Go and Seers is, "Oh my gosh, I can't believe I was in a spot where Bigfoot had been, or I can't
Uh-huh.
believe they were here." Um, you mean they are there?
Uh-huh.
They are there. They're there. Um, Well, the structure's been here for 3 years, and it's never been touched. It's never been altered. Well, I don't know about you, but when I'm done decorating my house, I don't change it weekly. I'm going to live with it for a while. And we really don't know why they do what they do. If you believe structures, some of them are Bigfoot related. Um, I personally think it's probably a form of nonverbal communication, and I think because we see such specifically built structures repeated across the globe, not just in the
Hmm.
Pacific Northwest or the US, but for instance, you mentioned Wales, Jason Parsons.
Mm.
Um, there was one day where he submitted a photograph to me back in the beginning. Jason is also a founding member of the Inner Circle and Project Go and See. He was one of
Uh-huh.
the very people to get out there. And we were so excited that he was in Wales. And the same day he submitted a photo to me, another new member who I was completely unfamiliar with sent me a picture. And my very first thought was, oh my God, he just stole this picture from Jason Parsons. So I went to go see if Jason had posted the picture, and he hadn't. And I thought, well, where did he get this? And so I immediately contacted Jason, and he goes, no, that's not the same picture. And upon closer inspection, putting
Uh-huh.
the two next to each other, I realized, oh my God, it is a different structure. And they were thousands of miles apart from each other in different countries. And they were that similar, and down to two little sticks to the left of, the doorway of the structure.
Uh-huh.
And free to the right of the structure, and the lean angle was exact, and the size of it, and the type of twigs and sticks and branches, that it was uncanny. Um, the very specific details of these structures, like I'm saying, just a few little sticks outside leading up, not even part of the structure,
Sure.
um, identical. Is that just a complete coincidence, or is there meaning to not just the structure, but the placement of these little things on the outside perimeter that, like you had mentioned, someone may not even take note of?
No, it's
Um,
very interesting to me. I was wondering about asking you actually regarding the areas that you're in. Now, my knowledge of the USA and other parts of North America, in the way that people are spread out, is not very good. It's not very thorough. So clearly, there are still, First Nations tribes of people across the country in various areas, in the areas that you inhabit or the areas that Nathan inhabits or some other people are finding stick structures. Are there local populations of First Nations people that are still actively occupying the woods or hunting or traveling? Could they leave structures like this for some purpose? The reason I think about it is that here in the UK, it's not very common knowledge, but we have a class of people, Irish travelers or gypsies, as
right,
it were, and they've lived sort of around the land for a very long time. And oftentimes, when they're traveling through the woods, they will leave little signs for each other, maybe a
right,
little arch to say that this way is towards water, or that way is towards, berries or food or whatever, or this way to the road. And they could just be sticks that are twisted or moved in a certain way, or an arch that's even pinned sometimes. And I just wondered, maybe some of the First Nations people or hunters also do things like that. Do you guys have a system for working out what's what? You know,
uh,
we know that hunters
it,
do this, we know that First Nations people do that, etc.
Yeah, it's pretty common. I mean, I can't give you specific examples because I'm not versed in all of that, but
Yeah.
I can tell you that in the time that the community has advanced to the numbers that it is, it's well known that the sort of markers that the Native Americans have used, the sort of markers hunters may use, and even hikers are very well known, and they're universal. It's universal language for each of those types of communication. And things that we're finding don't correlate.
Uh-huh.
Um, the repeated things that we find, very, like I said, there are a few very specific patterns in manipulation of the surroundings that we find over and over and over again that cannot directly be attributed to any.
Look, I'm really enjoying it so far anyway. So I hope you don't mind carrying on.
No,
Um,
I would love.
well, look, about what you were saying, in regards to the structures and what's left and um, what they could be. It's really nice to see because it's been a bugbear of mine for such a long time. From a personal perspective, it's really nice to see that people are sort of doing due diligence, but also getting out there and letting people have a go without jumping on them and smashing them and
Yeah,
criticizing them, which sometimes if you're in this community, and it's not just Bigfoot, like, because I study the whole thing.
right.
It's lake monsters, it's Mothman, it's,
Hmm.
living dinosaurs, whatever you're into, God forbid, you should get on the wrong side of an opinion.
Yeah.
Um, Especially if that opinion is established. Now, there's something I noticed a lot recently. What started happening to me is some people were feeding back sightings from my book to me as new evidence. They'd said,
Oh,
"Hey,"
yeah.
or theories even from my book
Mm,
as
yeah.
as established and proven principles. And I was saying to these people, "Oh, actually, no, that's a theory in my book, and that's not something I know to be true. It's just something I've kind of put forward as perhaps we could investigate this. Maybe this is something." And it got me
Right.
thinking about all the people who've been in the genre for, 30, 40, 50 years,
Mm.
and the ideas they've come up with, whether tried and tested or not, they've kind of become sacred to us.
Yeah.
Tradition, they've become um, what's it, religious law.
Mhm.
It's like scripture.
Yeah.
We can't move
Mhm.
away from it. And I was telling somebody it's a funny story. In my old church where I grew up, it was a Baptist church, and it was a couple of 100 years old. And they had a church organ, one of the old style church organs with the pipe in the side
Right.
wall, and it was really old, and it was starting to bring the wall down. So
Oh.
there was this whole thing where they were going to have to get rid of it, and there was a petition started in the church to stop them removing the church organ because it was taken away from God's church. It was taking away this sacred object. And the
Right.
pastor, he got up in the middle of the church and he held the Bible and he said, "Show me where the organ is in this book,
Right.
and where's the church organ in here? In Bethlehem." And what he was kind of saying is that sometimes in our beliefs, we have something there for so long,
Mm.
it's been established for so long, it becomes tradition and it becomes law, and it becomes sacred, the object
Right.
or the principle. I think we've got that problem in the Bigfoot community and others as well. If somebody's established enough and they've been here long enough, you simply actually can't disagree with them. And if you do, and many people have been on the wrong side of that, you find your exit from the mainstream
Right.
Bigfoot community to be a very quick one, and
Yeah.
everybody will be afraid to work with you. What are your thoughts tonight? Obviously, you mentioned Nathan's issue earlier. Is that something you've directly experienced or observed,
Uh, yes.
aside
And
from that one incident?
oh yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. In fact, I won't mention names, but
No, no, yes.
uh, I actually challenged somebody to take more responsibility for their claims
Hmm.
by offering something that would put me over the top of questioning it.
Yeah.
Uh, and I wasn't asking for much. I was asking for the simple basics that I think aren't implemented enough. Like
Hmm.
we kind of just brushed on. There's this tendency to jump to conclusions. Human nature wants answers now. They want to fill in the gaps. And in Project Go and See, we find a lot of people having experiences, and we can move into this subject later, but
Yes.
uh, that they can't explain. And um, I recently did a series of face-off episodes with Richter Riolo because he and I agree on so much.
Uh-huh.
And he's been telling me, oh, we've got to do some episodes, and I was hesitant to do it. I've enjoyed the anonymity I've had
Uh-huh.
being in a secret group and being able to observe everything that's going on and not be thrown into the fray. And my skin has thickened over time because of this kind of stuff. And
Yeah.
I did challenge somebody who's very well known and has recently um, been much more in the headlines of the community recently. Um, about 18 months ago, they were a member of the inner circle and um, posting stuff just for us. A lot of live videos and personal videos that he wasn't posting elsewhere. Um, and I started kind of taking issue with some of the things that he was saying and
Yeah.
privately addressed him, and he blocked me
Wow.
and left the group and took down all of his videos. And, I in no way attacked him or the content that he was sharing. I simply asked him to hold his claims to a higher standard by backing them up.
Can I
And
can I put something to you? And it's
yeah,
something I've experienced a lot. Is it kind of like that you questioned his religious belief, right? I mean, you questioned his belief in the religious sense, and sometimes it can be an egotistical sense too. But I've noticed in this community, because there's so many divergent opinions, a lot of the disagreement comes in, apart from envy over attention or whatever people are doing,
yeah,
comes in when you question a core belief, and you strike a chord, and the person
right.
says, "That's it, you're out of here, you're blocked."
That has happened, and I
Yeah,
think you asked that because I think you have a sense of who it may be, and it's not that person.
I
Um,
don't know who it was, by the way.
okay, okay.
Yeah, yeah.
No, it was actually just claims that he was making about someone else's work.
Uh-huh.
And oh, it's hard to navigate this without being
Yeah,
obvious.
sure.
Um, uh, he just didn't have enough to back what he was claiming about somebody.
Uh-huh.
And it was that simple. And I asked him, could you please do this? Could you please offer this? Certainly, with everything you're claiming, you have that at your disposal. We need to see it.
Yeah.
And not only did he not answer me, but it was instantaneous, unfriended, blocked,
Okay.
removed from groups. Um, and fine, bye. I
So
don't
it's
have time for that.
personal. I mean, the problem this person had with whoever else seems more like a personal thing then.
It was what he was claiming
Yeah.
was, yeah, I don't even know if it was a personal
Sure.
thing as much as it
Yeah.
was just simply what this person was um,
I get what you're saying.
presenting.
I'm putting you on the spot. I didn't mean
No,
to.
it's okay.
Yeah, I'm putting you in an
It,
awkward corner where you can't but reveal who you're talking about. I can see that.
and I could, but
Yeah.
I'm just not going to open
No,
that
don't.
can of worms
Yes,
because
don't.
there's worms everywhere right now, and
Yes. There's too many
enough of it.
worms. Don't
It's
bring any
just
more
enough,
worms into it. Look,
freaking enough worms.
I had a whole period last year where now my issue was this. My issue generally with people is this. I'm polite. I seem quite soft spoken and gentle. I am, but I'm also honest and direct. So when I'm honest and direct with somebody, and I don't like any funny business,
Right?
I realize that they're mostly offended because I haven't met their expectations.
Hmm.
When
It's true.
somebody's, even if they're bullying you, even if a bully, for want of a better expression, gets a punch on the nose, they're more offended than hurt because that's not what they were expecting to get from the encounter.
Right. There's
They'd like to make a complaint, about the lack of service
and
here.
there's some of these individuals that have been put up on such pedestals that for the majority they aren't questioned. They just
Mm,
aren't. What they're presenting is pre-screened as accepted, and because they're a veteran. And
mm.
I'm sorry, but having been in this field for 30 years does not give you a green light to feed all of us a bunch of crap.
And also, when you've spent that much time, and I've made this point before, and not trying to have a go at anybody here, but in general, when you've been there for a long time, where are your results? If you
Yeah.
know so much, where are the results then? As you say, I've been here 4 decades, 5 decades. Okay, where's the results? I'd like to
Well,
see them,
and
please. And
yeah,
not
Richard
that you
and I.
should have, but I mean that with that kind of levity that somebody's putting onto you, they should have
Yeah.
something else. I've been here 40 years and I've discovered that and that and that. So here's my standing if they want to lord it over you.
Right, right. Um, Richter and I touched on that too, and one of his questions that he posed to me is, why do I think that some of these veterans, some of them deceased now, we've lost some wonderful
Mm,
people in this field of interest in recent years, and why is it, how is it that some of these scientists and veteran researchers dedicated pretty much their entire adult lives to this subject
mm,
and never had an encounter? Well, that's what they claim. Um, they've been around a lot longer than I have, and I already know that it's dangerous to make claims of having
mm.
had an experience, let alone any, proof of it. And in my time with Project Go and See, we don't just have the public open group that anybody in the world can simply just, hashtag Project Go and See and be
Mm.
taken to, but we also have a secret group. Um, Project Go and See has a secret group as well for those who want a place where they can share what they're finding and
Mm.
discuss it with others who are as equally concerned about remaining anonymous and aren't really ready for um, the likely backlash that they're going to get. Um,
It's harsh. It's harsh. I get it with witnesses all the time, Barbara, that they do not want to go public in any way whatsoever, especially here in the UK. And I believe all witnesses. That's my. It's not even believe all witnesses. My philosophy is it's not up to me to believe you or disbelieve you.
right.
If I have problems with the credibility of the sighting, I just won't publish it. But you would never know
Unfortunately,
that as a
Andy,
witness.
right. Unfortunately, we are a rare breed.
Yeah, well, the
Um,
people either get smashed or they get exploited, and their names are either dragged out and sensationalized, witnesses this is, or they are, they're mocked or they're pushed away, even by recognized, people in the field from time to time. Yeah, somebody once asked me this. This is a funny offshoot of this particular question. They said, I always ask people if they have any mental health issues when they're giving me a sighting, but I'm always very quick to point out to them that doesn't exclude their sighting from being valid.
right.
What I'm most interested in is do you suffer from regular hallucinations or delusions? Something you've been diagnosed with, and if you do, would this recent experience be outside of the norm of those hallucinations? So even
Right.
then, it
Right.
doesn't mean that you can't have an experience. I'm sure
That's right.
lots of people with issues have had experiences, but that's still the same investigative procedure you go through
Hmm.
for a regular person who doesn't have any of those issues to somebody who does, and is it outside of the norm of your normal daily
Right.
experience? And if so, let's look into it.
Sure.
Let's investigate it.
Yeah. I've never thought
Mhm.
about that, but that's
Mm.
interesting.
Occasionally
And
it happens, but just
yeah.
yeah, don't give them the credibility, and people don't want to come to us anymore. I also think, not trying to um, talk away here, but there's a greater demand than the actual supply for evidence in the Bigfoot genre.
Absolutely.
And so people essentially are with their GoFundMe projects and their little
Right.
product lines. I've got my own as well, by the way, but they're having to produce lots of kind of evidence, I guess,
Yeah.
you know, every
Well, and
day.
it's interesting. Yeah. And it's very interesting because those who have never stumbled into the Bigfoot community, the interest on social media, which is massive. Um, People who don't have Bigfoot on the brain really have no idea how much information is out there and really um, how much is believed to be understood as little as it may be. There's quite a bit of speculation based on repetitive experiences in this subject. But people who just happen to turn on the TV and get interested, they're channel surfing and they stumble upon finding Bigfoot, for instance,
Yeah.
and they power watch the show, that is all encompassing of their experience with Bigfoot. They just turn off the TV and it's just not part of their world. And there's so little. The point I'm making is that when someone has an encounter, they may go tell their wife, their husband, their best
Mm.
friend, and the initial reaction across the board. I mean, I get it all the time when I tell people that I started out helping out somebody with administrative stuff in the Bigfoot community and completely pulled in. But the minute you mention the subject, people chuckle. They have that nervous laugh, or there's the eye roll, or you can tell that their ears just shut off as soon as you mention Bigfoot. They're nodding and they're not hearing a word you're saying. That's just mentioning Bigfoot.
Yeah.
Those that are struggling with what they've seen because they had a Class A encounter. They looked into the eyes of one of these creatures, and sometimes it's very benign, and other times it's incredibly scary,
Hmm.
and everything in between. You just can't talk about it, and that's part of what Project Go and See hopes to do is to open that door much wider and get a much larger audience, and for the sentiment of the subject to shift a little bit and become a much more accepted conversation and
Hmm.
subject in general. How is a person expected to share their encounter when they really feared for their life,
Hmm.
or there was an exchange of vocalizations, or this thing followed them for a week in the forest? Um, how are they going to even begin to talk about that when
Mm.
you just bring up finding Bigfoot and people laugh at you?
Yeah. Yeah. Or some
Uh,
of the other shows as well. I mean, I think it's very hard. I have witnesses that will speak to me, but they will not go even with their voice disguised. They will not anonymously even come
Right.
on and have a little chat about their encounter. I've had two, three, maybe people that said, "Okay, I'll speak to you about this." I think it might
I have
be,
3 years. I have 3 years of people coming to me with
yeah,
things that boggle my mind.
mm,
I've had grown men, hunters, crying on the phone with me,
no, I'm not
um,
surprised.
frustrated and scared and not understanding. And what do you do?
It's kind of like a
But
PTSD, isn't it? You could have died.
absolutely.
Yeah, when you're
Hmm.
faced with an animal, I've always said this to other people. If suddenly, Bigfoot researchers, if you're out there and that feeling you get sometimes when you're out in the woods all alone, so I used to do all the time, sometimes at night, and it's just you, and suddenly you think to yourself, what was that? Is that something with me? And if you are all alone, like Nathan was that time, and you suddenly realize you're in a dangerous circumstance, you're with an animal. All animals are different. There are good bears and bad bears, angry bears and happy bears.
Yep.
And every time you meet a bear, the encounter could be completely different, right?
Right.
Completely different.
Absolutely.
There is no guarantee as to what's going to happen other than the animal has to make a decision on what to do about you and has the power to do something about you.
Absolutely. When
And
we
that's the
consider
trauma.
what they are, is I
Yeah.
mean, they could pick you up and toss you, and
Yeah.
you're like going to go out. When it's a frightening, frightening thing, even in the most benign of
Yeah.
encounters. It's um, it's frightening. And Rio said over and over again in Monument, well, I don't have time to be scared. I don't have time to be scared. He went on to autopilot, and it was hilarious the way he just kept jabbering. And at one point, he actually turned around to show the structure, which he actually had approached just as the vocalizations
Mm.
began. And of course, focused on that. And the monument structure was behind him at the time when he was continuing filming during the vocalizations happening. And um, he's just hilarious because at one point he did stop and go, okay, so the reason I'm here, the structure's right here. And you can hear these things yelling still. You know, he's got one at 12 o'clock, one at 3 o'clock, one at 6 o'clock. And he actually turned around to say, okay, but here's the structure, by the way, everybody. Um, but he kept saying to himself, I don't have time to be scared. I don't have time to
Yeah.
be scared. And, I think what was most scary about it is that they obviously knew he was there long before he realized they were there. And
Hmm. Of course.
had they not made a sound, the fact remains he was flanked by at least three of these things and would never have known
That's very
with
interesting.
two dogs at his
And they
side.
didn't know either.
Oh, they knew.
I mean, until
They were
the
running all
noises
over the place.
began. Oh, really?
Yeah, they were trailing off, and they do that. He's had other encounters. He's had a number of encounters since then, and the dogs many times alert him to the presence, and they'll go right up to these things. And of course, if you know anything, and or if you believe anything about Bigfoot, one of the most obvious facts that's kind of undeniable is that they are innately uh, they just hide. They just,
Mm.
it's not just when people are around. It's just the way that they are. They're masters of their environment. And Nathan once used his hand as a perfect way to describe the way that they behave. You're in the middle of the palm, and
Mm.
as you move, these five Sasquatch
Uh-huh. I see.
move. And they always remain just far enough into the surrounding environment that you don't make them out.
But
Um,
that's something that comes up time and time again, isn't it? Just out of sight,
mhm.
just at the edge of sight. Like you,
Right.
I wonder if this territorial behavior is common throughout. I've heard, I don't know if you ever listened to the Yowie Hunters show in Australia. It's a fantastic show, just live witness reports, nothing but Yowie Hunters, YowieHunters.com, I think it's called. Anyway,
Familiar with it, but I haven't
yeah,
watched.
like this about 161 reports on the great interviews with witnesses. And again and again and again and again, apart from when the creature is clearly trying to intimidate somebody because they're angry with them, it seems to be an angrier animal overall, the Yowie. They
Yeah,
generally tend to flank people. and
Yeah.
follow them out, or kind of
Right.
make you aware that they're pushing you out,
Right. Yeah. They'll
bit by bit
escort
by
you out.
bit.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's another interesting thing too that Richter and I touched on a little bit. Um, eh, all of these stories that people come back from hunting or camping. Oh my gosh, we were almost killed by a bear, and really, wow, how big was it? I don't know. I never saw it.
Mm.
Um, i- if Bigfoot is out there, if they are as secretive as we believe, and yet present, very present,
Mm.
they clearly would have a much better sense of who we are than we do of them.
Yeah.
And it's not like they just showed up in 1967. They've always been there.
Yeah.
How long? I don't know. Who knows? Who knows what their lineage is, what their, evolutionary chain is? Who knows? We don't know. We don't know. But they've been around a minute,
So
and it, we're the scariest things on the planet.
good,
And
definitely. I mean, all animals know about us.
yeah,
Yeah.
you walk into the forest and the birds shut up.
Mm.
Bigfoot can smell us, see us. I mean, if they're like everything else in the forest, they know we're there. And some of these encounters, I think the scariest aspect, as I was saying, is um, when they finally do make themselves known. It's usually to get us to get the heck out.
Mm.
They want us gone, and they don't even have to show themselves to get rid of
So
us.
I
They
think
know how we behave.
maybe that's something to do with the fear and the encounters that it is, once it's gone that far, it is normally a warning. So perhaps that's what
Yeah,
people generally feel. You've come
right,
to the point where I'm going to show myself to you now to know that you shouldn't be here. You've got to get
right.
out. Hence the fear. I mean, I really can't imagine it. And I've run it over my head time and time and time again. What are you going to do if you have a sighting? Once you're in it, there's no going out until you're allowed out.
I'll tell you what you're going to do. You're going to freeze. You're going to freeze, and your brain is going to try and
I
figure out
don't
what it
doubt
is
it.
you're looking at,
I
and,
don't
and,
doubt it.
and by
And
the time
knowing
you've
what I
fully
should be looking
digested,
at,
it's over.
I still won't know what I'm looking at, of course.
Yeah,
I
and
always
then it's
think of
over.
remember that story about when Cortez came to the Aztecs and Moctezuma and his people, they saw the ships and they didn't know what they were, so they imagined they were floating mountains.
Right.
But they didn't look like mountains. But it's all we all have this little composite library, this mental library, of all the things we know about. Which is why in the old times, when you see drawings of here in the UK, woodwows,
Yeah.
or wild men, or you see drawings of lake monsters, it might have like the head of a fox and this weird swan-like neck and these clawed. It's just what you could think of at the time to
Right. We
describe what you
humanize it.
saw.
Yeah.
Yeah,
We
because
only
it's
have what we know in our database of
yeah.
how to explain these things. Yeah.
What about the
Yeah.
okapi that they discovered in the 1990s in the Congo jungle? Can you imagine somebody trying to describe that to you before it was discovered? Well,
Mm,
it's got the legs of a zebra and stripy and kind of like the body of a horse with a neck of a giraffe with two horns on top, but it's a
right.
shorter neck, and you'd be like,
Yeah.
come on, this isn't a creature.
Right.
This is some crazy local folklore. And if they'd never discovered it, all of the descriptions would still be kind of mad.
Yeah.
It looks like a bit of a mad creature.
Yeah.
And I love that could be discovered in the 1990s. It's
Right.
huge. And
Right.
then
Well,
zoos now everywhere.
the mountain gorilla.
Mm,
We've only known that it's only been a recognized species for 100 years.
Billy Ape.
It was a legend. It was a
Mm.
legend. No, I mean the mountain gorilla. The
No, I mean
mountain,
also, yeah,
but
yeah,
yes, the Billy ape
exactly.
as well.
Yeah, yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
Now, if you take a creature that just because of how elusive it is, and what has been observed, the claims that have been made, numerous different stories and little bits and pieces of information that has accumulated and come to us over the ages, they're clearly very, very intelligent, probably more intelligent than a gorilla, and
Mm,
probably more like man than any other primate. Uh, it's not surprising that they are not recognized and
mm,
discovered. But I don't believe that they aren't discovered. And I think what they are and where they came from and all of those questions that we want answered so desperately
mhm.
are answered. and somebody has that information. And the biggest question I think in this subject is why? What is it about them that is cause enough to keep allowing the denial?
I see. So more that it's a known phenomenon governmentally or internationally in some way, but there's something about see a lot of people see somebody said to me before. I was talking to a creationist guy about this, and he thinks that because it's a bipedal ape, it should be, if discovered, it should be used as a missing link. But
Yes,
what is actually discovered about it is that it's no link at all, and therefore it sort of undoes some of the evolutionary theories that may be around. And other
and
people think
those are the two
from,
possibilities, Andy. Those are the only two possibilities, and
and
either
also to
one
switch it,
causes big problems.
yeah, yeah,
Either one, it creates an entire
exactly.
domino effect of big issues that we're not ready for.
Either it's not a missing link or it is one, and either one causes huge problems.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so I mean that's a very interesting theory. All of this stuff, I love it. I love listening to, and although if you hear my own chatter sometimes on my own channel, I seem very critical. Most of it's always really faced in it myself because I spend half the time debunking the theories I've come up with, which makes writing a real headache. I look back at it and say, no, 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 that's rubbish, Andy. That's complete rubbish. You can't put that out. Nobody's going to believe that because you don't. And
Right.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
always try to face that stuff in. But yeah, the theories are very interesting. The one thing that stands out to me a lot is that, especially in today's society, being a religious person from religious background myself, but also having not been beforehand, is that there's kind of, we could say God-shaped hole, a religion-shaped hole in modern day Western society, and because of that, we find things to fill it, and we often
Yeah.
project this spiritual need onto things we're interested in, which is why there's so much offense and bickering in the Bigfoot community and
Well,
others.
one of the reasons.
Sorry,
One of the many.
one of the many reasons. But
Yeah.
there is that I've experienced it time and time again. You've essentially offended, you've offended them, and
Yeah.
that's such a hard thing to come back from. I believed something that was my core belief, and
Yeah.
you've basically smashed it. Now I don't like Candy or Barbara,
Right.
whoever.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. It's all very interesting and complex, and we've hit on a lot of different little bits and pieces, and each could be an entire show in and of itself.
Yes. Yeah.
It's really endless, and uh, so much of the intricacies of this field of interest are unknown by the general population, and that's it's one of the hopes of Project Go and See to number one, shift the sentiment of the subject, make it more approachable by introducing the idea that anybody could go out and start finding answers for
Hmm.
themselves. Um, some of my favorite members are those that came to us like hunters or military who say, I've been in the woods my whole life. I've never seen any of this stuff. You guys are fabricating this stuff.
Mm.
You're hoaxing it. You're building this stuff. I'm sorry, but we don't have 1,300 members all collectively willing to go out and build a hoax structure
Yeah.
today, or 3 times a week for a number of years, like some of these people are posting that frequently.
Yeah.
Um, it's just not happening. And I love when they get up in my grill behind the scenes in my PMs and decide that they just need to rant at me. And if I'm lucky, I'm able to convince them to go and look.
Yeah.
And there's some pointers you can give people on, okay, if you're not finding the structures, do that, go here, focus on this type of area. And in a couple hours, I'm telling you, you're going to find a structure. Prove me wrong. And I have yet, in fact, collectively, the group has yet to experience anybody, hear this, anybody come back to us and say they found nothing.
No, I believe
It's,
it.
it's
Yeah.
never happened. If they really go out and they really try, they are going to find something. And shockingly, it's not just a structure, but the number of people who come back and say, I was being beamed by something throwing pine cones at me, or all of a sudden there was somebody, and I kept going towards the sound, hoping to find the source of it, but it just kept getting further away. Somebody had a
Mm.
stick and they were like banging on a tree, and these are people who don't know about tree knocks,
Mm.
and or somebody is out there screaming, and if you're lucky enough to have one of these people actually pursue the sound, which many people do out of curiosity, or simply to bust the person who's messing with them, they never ever find the source. And
No, I've heard those stories time and time again, and that to me is more encouraging than discouraging. Actually,
yeah,
that people have experiences now. Whether we confirm things on bias or our own hopes, or we spook ourselves in the woods, or things happen, is a different subject. The UK is very different to the US in the sense of we don't have large predators around. Well, we're not
right,
supposed to have. We have got a whole
right.
bunch of big
The
cats,
cat, yeah.
but they're not supposed to be here.
Hmm.
Yes, but that's another story altogether. But generally speaking, we don't have bears. We don't have anything that can stand up and be mistaken for a Bigfoot or anything like that. So when people are
Right.
coming to me and they're giving me these experiences, I've got no choice but to believe them. I do some background research, and if it seems plausible, we often get things, descriptions like it was like a tall gorilla, or it was like
Hmm.
a chimpanzee on two legs but with a man's face. No
Yeah.
Bigfoot on the brain type of
Yeah.
descriptions. And I think that's important. But still,
Yeah.
it's a big subject and one may not be resolved in our lifetimes. I feel somewhat.
Wow.
Just before we go, Barbara, where
Yeah.
I want people to know about Project Currency. Where can they find it? Can they join? Or how can they get involved?
Absolutely. Uh, well, Facebook is the best place. The Project Go and See Facebook page.
Mhm.
Anyone can join. And if you do join, please realize that you can observe. You can simply go and observe and look at what people are doing. We would love for you to take the challenge and go and see. Um, if you want some pointers, feel free to PM me in Messenger, and I can kind of guide you to a few things that might increase your odds of finding a structure. And post. Don't share other people's content. We want what you post to be your content of what you have found. Um, and it's that simple. Your
Perfect.
posts need to have pictures or video or audio, and you don't have to tell us where you are. Uh, you don't have to disclose the area, none of that. And again, we do have a secret group as well if you are ready to share things that you don't want the general public to see, but you want like-minded people who are also concerned about anonymity. We have a secret group, and feel free to PM me if you want acceptance into that. But there will
Awesome.
be some,
Awesome.
some,
Well,
I'll be asking questions if you want in the secret group. So
sure, and I hope that people will give it a look and and go and see. Basically,
yeah,
I think it's a great idea for everybody. But thanks so much for speaking to me today. It's been delightful,
thank
and
you.
also to meet you as well, face to face
Yeah,
after all
it's
this
been
time.
great. Thank you, Andy.
Yeah.
Yeah,
See you
thank
soon.
you so much. It was fun. Thank you. Bye bye.
Bye.